The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for May 20th. Your reader for this hour is Brian. The headline article: The Cradle Still Rocks. New venues, deep history, and growing energy keep Memphis' uniquely American sound relevant and exciting. By Chris Kenning. From Memphis. At 87 years old, Pastor Juan Shipp listens with narrowed eyes to the soul gospel strains of one of Memphis' oldest groups turning up behind a recording studio window. Members of the Jubilee Hummingbirds talk and laugh, loosen unhurried, until organ-drenched grooves and warm guitar rhythms swell like a Sunday sermon. You hear that? Shipp asked, smiling and nodding slowly. Shipp is at Southern Grooves, a Memphis studio tucked into the sprawling concrete of a once abandoned Sears building, working with the Jubilee Hummingbirds. It's a group he's known since he was a part-time DJ, spinning 45s on a gospel radio station in the 1960s. His unlikely journey here is a story of Memphis, where the shared fortunes of a city and its music have seen plenty of ups and downs, but where the past and present, never far apart, can make unexpected magic. Back then, Shipp, hearing quality sound being laid down at iconic Stax Records just a few miles away, set out to elevate the soul-infused gospel music he was spinning. Most groups sounded like they were singing in a well, he said. So Shipp set up a small studio above a downtown sandwich joint. By 1972, Shipp started the label Divine Spirituals, and over the next dozen years he recorded over 200 acts such as Elizabeth King and the Gospel Souls. Shipp fostered his sound with wah-wah guitar and a tight rhythm section. In the studio, he was known for demanding gusto from singers, once urging King to, quote, sing it like you're making love to God. By the mid-1980s, however, the industry was changing. Shipp decided to return to daily ministry while still working at the post office. The studio eventually moved and later shut down as the city's core entered a slump. Then, nearly 3 decades later, Shipp dug up his masters from the shed after a writer inquired about them. They sat in storage for nearly a decade before a producer began reissuing them around 2020 to wide acclaim. NPR wrote about it. A documentary was made about the revival. Nowadays, Shipp is a partner at the Bible and Tire label, making new records. He's also come full circle in the DJ booth, where he spins a weekly radio show. If it all seems like a minor miracle, Shipp wouldn't disagree. But this is, after all, Memphis, a cradle of American music, whose famed legacy exists sometimes uneasily, but often serendipitously, along a determination to keep writing its music story, even when it's overlooked or counted out. After a tough few years in which Memphis has been battered by headlines about crime, Shipp is amongst those evangelizing about a city with well-known musical history, but an often underappreciated music present. One supporters say is laden with talent, under-the-radar hotspots, and new hopes for growth. 2 new venues are opening this year to bolster the city's live music draw. Also this year, the city is celebrating the 90th anniversary of the Overton Park Shell, where Elvis Presley first performed, with events including shows to highlight local musicians. Tourists still flock to monuments to Memphis' towering contribution to American music, visiting Beale Street's music bars, Isaac Hayes' custom Cadillacs El Dorado, and the Stax Museum of American Soul Music, or Elvis' 14-acre Graceland estate and his label Sun Studios. But there are also places like Bar DKDC, a small music venue next to the beauty salon turned restaurant where Priscilla Presley got her curl and dye job. The swanky Memphis Listening Lab, a repository of 60,000 records, where you can slide into a leather sofa to explore Memphis blues or the latest hip hop phenomenon. Hotels like train-themed Central Station, whose 8 and Sen Lounge curates nationally known DJs to spin records for free under a wall of speakers. And behind the scenes, top national artists still beat a path to places like World Studios and Sam Phillips Record Services, some of the city's oldest continuously operating studios. Memphis, Ship declares, is still hot. New venues and new hopes. The sky is turning orange and pink as the sun sinks on the Mississippi River, and Nick Barbian's phone won't stop buzzing. The shaggy-haired promoter is putting out small fires ahead of the first major show at the 4,500-seat Grind City Amp, a new venue 6 years in the making, whose soaring stage frames Bluff City's riverside skyline. There's broadly trouble with the Wi-Fi, a call to come to the box office, a VIP to greet, and in a city known for last-minute ticket buying and long beguiled for the live music scene, he could be forgiven for watching ticket sales like a fever. But at the box office, he breathes a sigh of relief at the long line of people streaming inside to see the Southern old band Alabama Shakers. Barbian is hoping that the new venue, along with Live Nation's 1,300-seat satellite music hall set to open later this year, will help draw bands that now bypass the city for lack of mid-sized spaces and add platforms for emerging local artists. It's just one piece of a larger puzzle, but Barbian believes the city has all the ingredients for a growth spurt despite a recent range of challenges. We're trying to figure out how we can celebrate the history of Memphis, he said, while building new opportunities and grow the future of music in Memphis so that the story continues. Nearby is Dwayne Eric Thomas Jr., the Grammy-winning musician known as Mono Neon, dressed in Technicolor hoodie and reflective shades. He loves Memphis and still lives here, he said, but mostly plays outside the city. He wants to remain, but noted that Memphis is still lagging as a music industry hub and can be, quote, too stuck in tradition. If stuff like this keeps happening, it'll keep growing, he said, referring to the Grind City opening, but it's been slow. It's part of a conversation that's been going on here for many years. Memphis is said to have been mentioned in more songs than any other city. Its influence on music has been profound. And yet, Nashville brands itself Music City and attracts the development and the industry infrastructure and the publishing deals. Austin declares itself the live music capital of the world and gets the South by Southwest media spotlight and the tech worker influx. Memphis gets history buffs and crime headlines. Some here say that President Donald Trump's deployment of the National Guard to the city last year didn't help. Some business owners have said it dampened business. Last month, LA Lakers star LeBron James said on the Bob Does Sports show that Memphis lacked appeal and that the NBA's Grizzlies should move to Nashville. I'm not the first guy to even talk about it in the NBA, James said. We all, you guys have to move. Just go over to Nashville. Memphis' history of economic struggles is well known. But from the music standpoint, many question why it hasn't captured more value from all its creation. Feeling like we are the makers, but not the beneficiaries, of music making has always been kind of a thing for Memphis, said DeMarcus Suggs, director of the Memphis Office of Creative and Cultural Economy. Mayor Paul Young created Suggs' position in 2024 as an explicit acknowledgement that Memphis' musical identity is not just a heritage project, but an economic strategy. The same year, the consultancy Sound Diplomacy released a music strategy report that found Memphis's music ecosystem generates more than $720 million a year, supports more than 5,000 jobs, and encompasses roughly 1,100 music-related assets across the city, including museums, nonprofits, and live venues. These are not small numbers. There are also, Suggs will tell you, not all they could be. The report also found 59% of musicians were considering leaving Memphis because of the inadequate support. Even more said earning a living in music was difficult. Suggs' office is focused on gathering government, nonprofit, and business support for the music industry. He cites efforts like the Crosstown Sync licensing program that work to get Memphis artists' music placed in Netflix shows, films, and commercial projects. And there's Music Export Memphis, a nonprofit that gives touring and marketing grants to local musicians. The study's main recommendations included calls to attract more artists and labels to boost music production. Music is our largest cultural export, Suggs said. This is kind of our big bet, from the city's perspective. To be sure, calls to better leverage music for economic development aren't new. Whether this time is different remains to be seen. And Suggs adds one caveat. Do it without losing the authenticity that makes Memphis unique. Past and present at the studio. On a recent April day, Lawrence Boo Mitchell is rubbing his eyes as he walks into Royal Studios in South Memphis, a music landmark tucked into a lower-income neighborhood dotted by boarded-up homes. He's tired after being up until 4 a.m. recording in the studio. Under yellow ceiling insulation that's changed little over decades in a Hammond organ, a drum kit, and microphones, including once used by Al Green, who recorded some of his hits here under producer Willie Mitchell, Boo's father. He grew up in a minor rockabilly studio to one that shaped the 70s Memphis soul. Boo Mitchell, adopted and raised by his grandfather, said he was lucky to grow up in a city he calls the cradle of musical civilization, whose location placed it in a lucky musical crossroads. It got the blues from Mississippi, country from Nashville, and jazz from New Orleans. It got gospel from across the South. The magic brew that propelled rock and roll's first stars. In the 1960s and 70s, Stax produced Otis Redding, Sam and Dave, and Isaac Hayes, while Royal was home to Ann Peebles and Green. It was a tumultuous time, too, of civil rights struggles and the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. In 1968, amid a changing business, Stax faced involuntary bankruptcy in 1975. The impact of the larger employer and community beacon rippled as the city faced a period of economic struggle. The downturn also thinned out the music clubs that were a pipeline for local musical talent. Boo Mitchell said, but while some left Nashville for Atlanta, Willie Mitchell kept working on the same spot where people like John Mayer, Keith Richards, and Rod Stewart. Over the years, the city produced some influential artists and sounds. In the 1990s, the Memphis hip-hop sound, led by 3-6 Mafia, blew up, and it remains a dominant influence on hip-hop stream today. Today, Boo Mitchell points out, Glorilla, born Gloria Hallelujah Woods, was raised in North Memphis, is one of the biggest rappers in the world. Lesser known is a small army of musicians who tour with national acts based in Memphis. More often than not, something magical happens in Memphis. It might not be as it was before, but the Memphis fingerprint is still everywhere, he said. He needed that magic in 2010. After his father died that year, the phone stopped ringing at Royal Studios. Boo Mitchell, who had been an engineer himself, would have to prove himself. All of the major credits to my name at that point were in conjunction with the records I was making with my dad. A turning point came after they participated in Take Me to the River, a documentary about a companion album about Memphis music. The project required Mitchell to record William Bell, Bobby Rush, Snoop Dogg, Terrence Howard, and others, and brought attention and acclaim. That project just changed my life, and then the floodgates just opened, he said. What followed? Boz Scaggs, Wu-Tang Clan, Robert Plant, Mark Ronson, and the famous night in 2014 when Ronson brought in Bruno Mars to sing on a track for an album he was putting together. It was 4 a.m. and they were still working out on the lyrics. They'd run out of booze. Mitchell rummaged around and found an old gift about his Four Roses bourbon he had given to his dad. I just looked at it and said, "Sorry, Pop, take one for the team." So I cracked open the top of it, said Bruno's the first one of the cup, and he was like, "Yeah, Boo Mitchell, fill my cup. Put some liquor in it," he told Memphis Magazine. They become the lyrics in the song Uptown Funk, which became a monster hit and won a Grammy. More recently, Mitchell helped craft the Mississippi Delta Blues soundtrack for the film Sinners, which won a Grammy for Best Compilation Soundtrack for Visual Media. These days, the phone won't quit. Mitchell said that there are plenty of less visible local efforts to boost Memphis artists, such as promoters working to get them on tours with national headliners. In early May, he featured a series of acts including Stax great Carla Thomas and the city's marquee Riverbeat Festival, now in its third year. Stepping outside the studio, he said he has never considered moving to a fancier neighborhood or another city. There's something special about the city's perpetual underdog, blue-collar grit, he said. The lightning keeps striking because there's magic and spirit here. A deep bench of musical talent. At age 18, Marcella Simeon moved to Memphis to attend art college. She never left. Now 35, the daughter of a Zydeco musician is herself a musician. Simeon, speaking after returning to Memphis from a show where she got to perform alongside artists such as Janelle Monáe, said her adopted city's music legacy has influenced my work in so many ways. She's a contributor and beneficiary to some local music programs, adding musicians including Music Export Memphis, which has provided grants for her on tour. Some programs can be critical as musicians depend more on selling tickets to live shows. Simeon is also an evangelist for rewriting negative perceptions about Memphis by headlining its vibrant musical presence. When people think of Memphis, they only think of the history, and maybe they're not thinking about the vital present of the artists who are creating here, who are genre-breaking and really innovative things musically and artistically. That ranges from an underground punk rock and garage psych sense scene, founded by Goner Records and its annual Goner Fest, to a thriving DJ scene fueling a series of hood rave organized by Tabia Safia. We're a city full of, honestly, like a lot of music snobs, which I love, she said, laughing. One example, on a recent April weekend in the Cooper Young neighborhood, big crowds turned out for Porch Fest, where everyday residents played front porch concerts of sizzling rock, punk, and even hip-hop acts, anchored by a stand-up bass in the back of the pickup. While some music bars struggled during its pandemic and more recently, music is served up at places like Hernando's Hideaway, a juke joint named Wild Bill's, the Lamplighter Lounge, or Ernest and Hazel's, a famed dive bar and formal brothel whose lore includes inspiring the Rolling Stones lyric of a gin-soaked bar-roomed queen in Memphis in their song Honky Tonk Woman. There's endlessly interesting, unique, artistic things happening here. Just endless, she said. There's definitely a spirit of hope and revitalization. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 20 minutes after the hour. Next article on Iran. Written by Michael Loria, Christopher Kahn, and Andrea Requer. Trump cites progress, puts off planned strikes on Iran. Administration imposes new financial sanctions. President Donald Trump said he delayed strikes on Iran planned for May 19th following progress on a possible deal to end the war, though Tehran's latest proposal appears little changed from an earlier deal that the president rejected as, quote, garbage. It's a very positive development, but we'll see anything and whether or not it amounts to anything, Trump said at the White House on May 18th about the supposed deal. He acknowledges past moments where he heralded a deal that, quote, didn't work out, but said that this time it's a little bit different. Trump added that the, quote, last thing Iran is thinking about these days is its nuclear program. Now they have to put it down in writing. Iran's latest proposal includes a withdrawal of troops from areas near the country, to end to the war on all fronts, including Lebanon, compensation for damage during the conflict, a lifting of sanctions, and an end to the ongoing U.S. maritime blockade on Iranian ports and ships, the country's state media reported on May 19th. Top Islamic Republic officials in the hours beforehand also said they considered the country's right to enrich uranium non-negotiable. Graham, Congress must approve end of war. In a social media post, Trump said the leaders of Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates had requested that he hold off on the attack from May 19th because a deal will be made, which would be very acceptable to the United States of America as well as countries in the Middle East and beyond. Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina, on May 18th said that any deal without Iran to end the war must be approved by Congress. Any agreement reached between the United States and Iran must come before Congress for approval, as was the case for JCPOA under President Obama, said Graham, referring to an Obama administration deal with Iran aimed at limiting the country's ability to make a nuclear weapon. If we can end the conflict through diplomatic means that achieve our national security objectives, that would be a major accomplishment. According to Graham, the White House's aims in negotiating are ensuring Iran stops enriching uranium, that the United States obtains the country's supply of the nuclear material, Iran allowing free trade through the Strait of Hormuz, Iran eliminating its nuclear and ballistic weapons programs, and Iran ending its support for terrorists. Graham's comments came hours after he pushed for renewed attacks on the Islamic Republic. Fresh sanctions on Iran. As the United States maintains pressure on Tehran, the Trump administration on May 19th imposed sanctions to an Iranian foreign currency exchange and what it sees were front companies overseeing transactions on behalf of Iranian banks. The Treasury Department imposed sanctions on the Iran-based Ammon Exchange, also known as Abrahami and Associates Partnership Company, which it has a widespread network of fresh companies spanning multiple jurisdictions, including in the United Arab Emirates, Turkey, and Hong Kong. The United States also blocked 19 vessels it said were involved in shipping Iranian petroleum and petrochemicals to foreign customers. The Treasury Department said Iranian exchange houses facilitate billions of dollars in foreign currency transactions a year, enabling the government to evade sanctions and access the international financial system. It said the front companies oversee hundreds of millions of dollars in transactions on behalf of Iranian banks. Quote, Iran's shadow banking system facilitates the illicit transfer of funding for terrorist purposes. Quote, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said in a news release. As Treasury systematically dismantles Tehran's shadow banking system and shadow fleet under the economic fury, financial institutions must be alert to know how the regime manipulates the national financial system to wreak havoc. Bessent calls on allies. Bessent also called on allies for more forcibly disrupt Iran's financing networks and that the Treasury would scrub its sanctions list of outdated designations to make it easier for financial institutions to root out of the most sophisticated terrorist financing schemes. In remarks prepared for delivery at an anti-terrorism financing conference after G7 finance leaders met in Paris, Bessent said that participants needed it to stand with us in full measure against Iran. That will require, for example, our European partners to join the United States in taking action against Iran by designating its financiers, unmasking its shell and front companies, shuttering its bank breaches, and dismantling its proxies. It will require those of you in the Middle East and Asia to root out of Iran's shadow banking networks. Bessent said the Treasury will modernize its sanctions architecture because, quote, our adversaries adapt and innovate by creating new shell companies. He said the Treasury approach would be to maintain agility to maximize effectiveness, and cited examples of easing sanctions on Syria and Venezuela after regime changes as example of how the Trump administration intends to adjust sanctions. G7. Hormuz may reopen. Meanwhile, the finance ministers of the G7 group of countries reiterated to the imperative to reopen the Strait of Hormuz have said it was important to tackle global social account balances. They also reaffirmed in a joint statement their commitment to multilateral cooperation in addressing risks to the global economy. Brent crude oil is traded off near $111 a barrel, and bonds off sold hard May 19th as the war dragged on. Stocks and other assets slumped as Wall Street opened, and gas prices pushed higher, with a gallon of unleaded regular averaging $4.53. Even more concerning is conditions may get worse, according to Kareem Marshall, Director of Climate and Energy Policy for the Nonpartisan Consumer Federation of America. While gas prices do terrify me, I think the thing that is going to be even more shocking to consumers is going to be the late summer price increases. Marshall believes that the cumulative price gains in energy costs, not just gasoline, but diesel, which fuels much of the food supply of America, will keep adding up as Americans start the heavy driving season of the summer. It's going to get worse, he said. He told USA Today on May 18th. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 29 minutes after the hour. Jackson, High Court must be neutral in election cases. By Maureen Gropp from Washington. Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson on May 18th amplified her concern about a rare extra step the court took after its blockbuster decision limiting the Voting Rights Act, saying she fears the appearance of partisanship. The justices this month allowed its April 29th decision to take effect early, boosting the chances that Republicans could impose a new congressional map in Louisiana before the November elections. My view was it would be just more neutral to handle the matter, to just stick with the rule that we always apply in situations like this, Jackson said when asked about a legal conference about her dissent in the case. The court, she said, has to be, quote, really, really careful in this environment when dealing with issues that have a political overlay. It is so important for the public to perceive us as neutral and nonpartisan, Jackson said at a meeting of the American Law Institute. We know that public confidence is really all the judiciary has. The normal rule is that the court holds on to decisions for 32 days after they are reached to allow time for the losing side to request another hearing. The justices may shorten that time, but it's rare to do that when the losing side objects, as was in the case in the voting rights dispute. Jackson, one of the court's 3 liberal justices, was the only justice who publicly dissented from that decision. The court's principles, she wrote in her dissent, gave way to power. Justice Samuel Alito, in a written response, called this a groundless and utterly irresponsible charge. Alito said that, quote, unthinking compliance with the court's default rule would have created the appearance of partiality by helping run up the clock so Louisiana would have had no choice but to use a congressional district that the court had ruled unconstitutional. What principle has the court violated? He asked. The principle of that rule, 45.3's 32-day default period should never be shortened, even when there is good reason to do so. The principle that we should never take any action that might unjustifiably be criticized as partisan. Asked at the legal conference about her many dissents, Jackson called them an important way of showing that the justices can work with those who hold different views, lay off an alternative position, and then move forward. American doctor tests positive for Ebola by Alyssa Goldberg. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention confirmed on May 18th that one American has tested positive for Ebola and was exposed as part of a work assignment in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The individual developed symptoms over the weekend and tested positive late on May 17th. The CDC did not name the individual, but the Surge Christian Mission Organization said that one of its medical missionaries, Dr. Peter Stafford, has tested positive, being exposed while treating patients at Nyan Kund Hospital in the DRC, per Reuters said in a statement released by the organization. The CDC is working with the Department of State to move the American to Germany for treatment, along with 6 other high-risk contacts for monitoring. On May 17th, World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus announced that the outbreak of the Bundibugyo virus, a species of Ebola that has killed at least 80 people with nearly 250 suspected cases in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo as of May 16th. To the American public, the risk of the United States remains low. Dr. Satish Pillai, incident manager for the agency's Ebola response, told reporters in a May 18th media briefing. The WHO said that the spread doesn't yet meet pandemic levels under international health regulations. The CDC, the Department of Homeland Security, and other relevant federal agencies are taking proactive public health measures to prevent Ebola from entering the United States, including putting entry restrictions on non-U.S. passport holders if they have been in Uganda, the DRC, or South Sudan in the previous 21 days. Travelers to the region should avoid contact with sick people, report symptoms immediately, and follow our travel guidelines. There are no approved therapeutics or preventative prophylactic measures for the virus. CDC is actively involved in this response, and we're working across domestic and international partners. Please know that we are adjusting as we need to. Everything we do is focused on the people affected and the security of Americans here and abroad. From the money section. Car ownership is a luxury for many. 39% of Americans said they cannot afford one. By Betty Lynn Fisher. Owning a car is becoming more difficult as the rising costs of vehicles and insurance make ownership a luxury for more. A new study finds that nearly 4 in 10 Americans surveyed by LendingTree, or 39%, said a car is a luxury that they cannot afford. And more car owners said that they are stretched too thin with their costs. Rising fixed costs, especially in loan payments and insurance, are the main reasons people cited for why car ownership has become so expensive and elusive. Loan payments average $7,275 annually, with insurance averaging $2,277, gas $2,105, and maintenance coming in at $1,184. Insurance costs have surged 37.5% since 2021, outpacing income growth at 23.9% and other vehicle expenses, LendingTree said. Consumers are taking on too much car-related debt. A long-held rule of thumb is that a monthly auto payment shouldn't exceed 10% of monthly income, and that your overall auto-related expenses shouldn't top 20% of your income, said Matt Schultz, LendingTree Chief Consumer Finance Analyst. But many people are topping the 20% threshold with their car payment alone, which is troubling, he said. Costs tied to car ownership continue to rise faster than incomes, and insurance premiums are also outpacing income growth. When these rising costs are combined with high loan payments and everyday financial pressures, it leaves many households with very little room for error. Many Americans with active auto loans are spending 15% of their income on car-related expenses, which equates to $12,841 annually against the median household income of $85,759. That matches the benchmark that experts use to define being transportation cost burden, according to the United States Department of Transportation. According to an analysis by LendingTree, auto loan holders in Louisiana had the highest strain at 23.2%, or $14,000 of their $64,199 median household income going forward towards car costs. Mississippi followed at 21.5%, and New Mexico rounded out the top three at 19%. On the other end of the list, Massachusetts auto loan holders put the smallest state of their income toward car costs at 10.6%, followed by New Hampshire at 10.9%, and the District of Columbia at 11.4%. Despite affordability challenges, the majority of survey respondents, or 61%, said they personally owned or leased a car. That number was higher among baby boomers, but drops to 39% of consumers whose earnings were less than $30,000. For those who say they are car shopping, 21% said they delayed a purchase and that figure rose to 27% among Gen Zers. Additionally, 16% said that they chose a less expensive car than what they originally wanted, while 13% said they kept their original car longer than they had planned. Another 12% chose not to buy a new car at all. Some shoppers are also committing to younger auto loans, as long as 7 years, to make their monthly payments more affordable, but that can come with risks. Longer loans often mean paying significantly more in interest over time, and they can keep borrowers in debt for years, longer than they're expected, he said. There's also a greater chance of becoming upside down on the loan, meaning you owe more than your car is worth. That can create real financial strain if the car is totaled, needs major repairs, or if your financial situation changes unexpectedly. And high gas prices are adding to another strain to an already financially stressed consumer. Schultz said, when gas prices rise, that creates another unavoidable cost that many people simply can't cut back on, particularly in areas where driving is a necessity, he said. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 42 minutes after the hour. Study. Ford is on top of recall list. Automaker issues 152 of the actions in 2025. By Jamie L. LaRue of the Detroit Free Press. From Detroit. It's no secret that Ford has had a lot of recalls in recent years, even setting a record in 2025 with 152 recalls, according to the National Highway Safety Traffic Administration. Now, a study by iSeeCars.com, published on April 8th, shows that Ford and its luxury brand Lincoln had both the highest number of recalled vehicles, and its vehicles made up nearly half of the top 25 models, with the most projected lifetime recalls based on data analyzed from April 1st, 2025 through March 31st. Toyota was in second place for the most recalls with 4.1 million vehicles. Stellantis, which makes Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, and Fiat brands, was in third place with 3.4 million vehicles, and General Motors was in seventh place with 1.2 million vehicles, the iSeeCars.com study showed. On the flip side, Mercedes-Benz models dominated the list of vehicles that had the fewest recalls. Vehicle maker Tesla had the biggest improvement in recalls. It dropped 83,265 vehicles recalled between April 2025 to March, compared with the 3.4 million recalled in the same period a year earlier. That change is likely due to Tesla being able to do more over-the-air fixes and not having to physically recall a vehicle to a repair facility. Carl Brauer, executive analyst at IC Cars, told the Detroit Free Press, part of the USA Today network. Ford tops the list. The 152 recalls Ford issued in the full year of 2025 affected 12.96 million vehicles, Brower said. But in the past 12 months, between April 2025 to March, Ford recalled 19.6 million vehicles, more than all of the 22 other automakers on the list combined. The study showed that Lincoln Aviator, Lincoln Corsair, Ford Maverick, and Ford Bronco make up for the top 5 models that have the most projected recalls. It doesn't reflect well on a premium brand to be in that group, Brower said. It further proves that under the skin, which is where many recalls happen, there is many Lincolns and Fords branded vehicles being recalled. You have genuine quality problems, whether it's in the engine or the quality of the manufacturing or the software. Ford leaders say that many of these recalls reflect older Ford models and that the automaker's quality ratings on it have been recently launched vehicles has been improving. Also, during that April 2025 to March period, 15 recalls were responsible for approximately 75% of the vehicle volume, or about 15 million vehicles. For example, the February software recall of Ford's integrated trailer control module impacted nearly 4 million vehicles. In that recall, the vehicle's integrated trailer module would lose communication with the car, causing a loss of brake and turn signal lights or a loss of brake function. As the Detroit Free Press reported last summer, Ford has implemented several new quality control processes to address a high number of recalls. These changes include stricter vehicle launch procedures, hiring manufacturing and engineering specialists, and benchmarking Toyota's manufacturing practices to implement the lean manufacturing process across Ford plants to catch defects early and fix them before a vehicle leaves the factory. Josh Halliburton, Ford's executive director of quality, told the executive Detroit Free Press on April 20th that 90% of the recalls it had in the past 12 months involved vehicles model years between 2015 and 2022. Vehicles that were engineered before 2013 to 2020. He said the automaker continues to put a lot of work to identify any past errors and so to fix them quickly for customers. The quality of what we're producing today, what is leaving our factories today, is improving. We are making meaningful and measurable progress improving vehicle quality that has become clear over the last 12 months, Halliburton said, earning 4 spots on the J.D. Power Initial Quality Study, combined with 2 of Consumer Reports' top 10 picks in new cars and our best reliability finish in 15 years this past fall, shows we are moving in the right direction. Halliburton said the initial quality improvement is helping Ford trim costs, noting that warranty cost by $500 million in 2025 compared with the year prior. For us, 1 recall is 1 recall too many, and our goal is 0, Halliburton said. If you look at this year, January to now, it's about 9.75 million vehicles recalled to date, and 80% of what we can fix with software. So we're using the air or mobile repair to make it as pain-free as possible. Brower noted that some of the Ford recalls are happening in conjunction with a consent order or settlement that NHTSA and Ford agreed to in November 2024. It required Ford to look past at all of its vehicle recalls over the past 3 years to make sure Ford covered the right number of affected vehicles, and if not, expand the shape of recalls to include more vehicles. Some safety experts have said that the consent order's requirement in partly driving Ford's high recall number. NHTSA showed that Ford has let the most vehicle recalls each year going back to 2020. Bauer said that regulators have been applying pressure and closer scrutiny across the board of automakers, which is why some are proactive in recalling vehicles other than others. My sense is that every car company is going to have actual recalls and some wobblers, things that could go either way. There are also some technical service bulletins, which is not a recall per se, and manufacturers would rather have a technical service bulletin. It goes to the dealer and says, if a customer complains about this or a car comes in and you should want to check this, you should. Bauer told the Detroit Free Press the team did not study to help car shoppers because recalls are a time-consuming inconvenience and could pose a safety risk. We just think it's helpful to consumers to get a view of what's out there. And these are the cars and brands that do the best in terms of recalls, and they're the ones who do the worst, Brower said. For the study, IC Cars analyzed vehicle safety recall complaints as of April 2nd from NHTSA for model years 2017 to 2025. The number of recalls for each model was aggregated and projected for an expected 30-year lifespan, taking into account the overall behavior of the automaker and when each recall campaign was issued on the car's lifetime. The team used the resulting estimates and used them to rank models with the fewest and most expected safety recalls. It did not include heavy-duty models, low-volume models, and models discontinued prior to the 2020 model year. Ford's recall costs. For automakers, recalls are expensive. According to publication Warranty Week, Ford's warranty accrual rate hit a record high at 4.5 in the first quarter last year, but came down to 4.1% in the second quarter. The accrual percentage rate represents the portion of revenue from each sale that a company sets aside for expected warranty claims. A higher accrual rate often reflects quality challenges. For comparison, General Motors' warranty accrual rate in 2025 was 2.3% to 3.2%. Ford paid $1.5 billion in warranty claims in the first quarter of 2025 and $1.3 billion in the second quarter of 2025. Warranty Week data showed. GM paid $1.2 billion in warranty claims in the first quarter of 2025, and Tesla paid $392 million. In the fourth quarter 2024, Ford spent $500 million less in warranty costs than in the third quarter. Ford's CFO Sherry House said at the time, for all of 2025, Ford was able to take another $500 million out of its warranty costs. Still, Brower said, the high number of recalls begs the questions. What's the nature of these recalls? Are they supplier parts? Are they due to manufacturing where certain bolts weren't tightened correctly? He noted that most suppliers don't have a single customer. As a hypothetical example, Lear doesn't just make seats only for Ford, so why does another automaker have seat problems too? Even if the problem is part that it was assembled and built by a supplier, it would be related to the original automaker's engineering, Bauer said. What to consider as a consumer? Bauer said that just because a vehicle might have a history of recalls does not mean that a person shouldn't buy it if it isn't what they want and it has other benefits. If I'm a consumer, my attitude would be, I'd consider how much I want the car. If I'm a huge Bronco fan and it's in the top 10 recalls, but there's nothing else like a Bronco and I want it, I'll buy it, Bauer said. But now you have to do regular recall checks on the NHTSA website because it's so much better if the owner can be proactive. So if you embrace that as part of your ownership duties, there you go. But he said if a consumer is giving equal consideration to two different vehicles, he would steer clear and go for the one that is not on the recall list. Another solution is to consider the brands and models that are most likely to get a fix through a convenient over-the-air update in your own garage. Recalls resolved through over-the-air updates are still critical safety issues to address, but the processes can be nearly invisible for vehicle owners, Bauer said. For buyers interested in electric and high-tech models, OTA technology can help substantially improve their ownership experience. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the USA Today from May 20th on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after the short break. Your reader has been Brian.
You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. As of this year, our agency has broadcast more than 300,000 hours of radio readings. Volunteer radio readers read newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability, who are provided reading radios. Radio Reading's broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio Reading broadcasts from studios at 1199 Harlem Road in suburban Buffalo. Please let others know about Radio Reading. It's your service. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call 716-821-5555.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Pat Connolly. Let's start inside the sports section on page 5. Canadiens crush Sabres' hope in overtime by Sal Majorana. At this point in the history of professional sports in Buffalo, you have to ask yourself, when is this forever curse going to end? And how much heartbreak is simply too much? Seriously, there is no fan base that has dealt with more gut-wrenching, soul-crushing, utterly sickening postseason losses than the two teams who mean so much to Western New York, the Buffalo Bills and the Buffalo Sabres. Don't even attempt to make an argument for another city, because there's not one that has had to swallow the level of disappointment and despair that has been heaped upon Buffalo. And the night of May 18th, another chapter was written in this long and horrifying novel. Alex Newhook's somewhat harmless-looking shot from the left face-off circle found its way past Buffalo goalie. I do not know how to pronounce all of these names, but this one in particular. Okay, so Alex Newhook's somewhat harmless-looking shot from the left face-off circle found its way past Buffalo goalie Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, 11 minutes and 22 seconds into overtime. And just like that, the Sabres are done, thanks to this 3-2 loss to Montreal in Game 7 of the NHL Western Conference second round series. One shot decides the whole season. It, expletive, sucks, Rasmus Dahlin told reporters. It really did suck because for most of the last 2.5 periods. We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Pat Connolly. Let's start inside the sports section on page 5. Canadiens crush Sabres' hope in overtime by Sal Majorana. At this point in the history of professional sports in Buffalo, you have to ask yourself, when is this forever curse going to end? And how much heartbreak is simply too much? Seriously, there is no fan base that has dealt with more gut-wrenching, soul-crushing, utterly sickening postseason losses than the two teams who mean so much to Western New York, the Buffalo Bills and the Buffalo Sabres. Don't even attempt to make an argument for another city, because there's not one that has had to swallow the level of disappointment and despair that has been heaped upon Buffalo. And the night of May 18th, another chapter was written in this long and horrifying novel. Alex Newhook's somewhat harmless-looking shot from the left face-off circle found its way past Buffalo goalie. Do not know how to pronounce all of these names, but this one in particular. Okay, so Alex Newhook's somewhat harmless-looking shot from the left face-off circle found its way past Buffalo goalie Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, 11 minutes and 22 seconds into overtime. And just like that, the Sabres are done, thanks to this 3-2 loss to Montreal in Game 7 of the NHL Western Conference second round series. One shot decides the whole season. It, expletive, sucks, Rasmus Dahlin told reporters. It really did suck because for most of the last 2.5 periods, the Sabres were the better team, the more dangerous team, and certainly the team that deserved to be smiling in the handshake line at night's end. But it's Buffalo, and of course, it wasn't meant to be. I don't think anyone in this room felt like we were done yet, just disappointed, Tage Thompson said. The Sabres were trying to become the fourth team in NHL history to earn consecutive multiple-goal comeback victories when facing elimination in both games. Instead, they lost at KeyBank Center for the 5th time in 7 games, and they remain stuck on one Game 7 victory in their 56-year history, the Derek Plant game against Ottawa in 1997. Now, on the positive side, when the tears dry and the anger and vomiting subside in the next few days, this will be a season that will be looked back on fondly, because you must remember where this team was in early December, dead last in the Eastern Conference and seemingly headed for a 15th straight absence from the postseason. However, the Sabres won a dramatic overtime game at Edmonton on December 9th that started a season-altering 10-game winning streak, and they wound up producing more points from that night through the end of the regular season than any team in the league as they won their first division title since 2010. It was a giant step for us, Coach Lindy Ruff said of the Sabres' third season in which they won at least 50 games. When I took the job, I wanted these guys to like being a Buffalo Sabre. I think they like being a Sabre, and I think they made our city proud. It wasn't the result we wanted, and to a man, they're all disappointed, but they gave them everything they had. I'm so proud of our fans, and I know this hurts them as much as it hurts us. It hurts. I told the team it hurts. That pain will go away. But I won't let this one game define the season we had. I told them how proud I was of them, said Lindy Ruff. Here are my observations on another sad night in Buffalo. The game-winning goal was brutal. For as tremendous a season as Dahlin has had, his misplay at the Canadiens' blue line led to the rush that ended in Newhook's goal. I don't really know what he was doing, and he's going to be replaying that moment for the next few months. Josh Norris won an offensive zone face-off and steered the puck back to Dahlin at the left point. He wound up for a slap shot, but changed his mind and tried to stick handle to the middle, but Ivan Demidov poked it off his stick. Thompson had a chance to bail out Dahlin, but he couldn't regain possession, and away the Canadiens went. Alexander Carrier skated to the center and fed Newhook on the left wing, and he moved to the top of the left circle and snapped a shot that went under the UPL's left arm and above his left pad. It boils down to one game and one moment, and yeah, it doesn't feel good, Luukkonen said. It was such a terrible result on what was pretty much a nothing play, especially given all the scoring chances both teams had in this game that were turned aside by the goaltenders, far more of those, however, by Montreal rookie goalie Jakub Dobeš. UPL played well, but the goal that ended the season is one that he should have stopped, and there is one thing that will never change in the NHL. You can't win a championship if you don't have a dependable goalie, and in this series both UPL and Alex Lyon were terribly unreliable. For Newhook, he has now scored the game winner in two Game 7s this month, as he also beat Tampa Bay in the first round, thus becoming just the second player in Stanley Cup playoff history to do that in one postseason. We said at the start of the series it was going to be two really good teams playing, Ruff said. You get to overtime, we had a couple really good chances. We had chances in our hands. Those are the opportunities that you hope you get. We just didn't finish. Jakub Dobeš stole the game. 2 days after getting blown out of his goal crease when he allowed 6 goals in Game 6, Dobeš was the lone reason why the Sabres are packing their equipment bags and heading home. He was handed a 2-0 lead on first period goals by Philip Danault and Zach Bolduc, and he blanked the Sabres for the first half of the game before a Matthias Samuelsson shot that he never saw glanced off Jordan Greenway's pants and into the net at 13 minutes and 19 seconds of the second period. 13:19. The Sabres had already started to take control of the game by then, and once they scored, they ran Montreal all over the ice and dominated play. The Canadiens were fortunate the second period ended because they were dragging when the horn sounded, and if there'd been a few more minutes, Buffalo probably would have tied the score. That didn't happen until 6 minutes 27 seconds of the third, when Dahlin skated through the left circle and beat Dobeš just inside the near post, and Buffalo continued to put pressure on, but Dobeš stood tall. He made 22 saves in the second and third periods, then stopped all 6 shots he saw in overtime, finishing with 37 saves. According to metrics site naturalstattrick.com, the Sabres generated 42 scoring chances, including 20 high-danger chances compared to 31 and 15 by the Canadiens. Buffalo's expected goals for the game was 5.1, Montreal's was 2.85. Of course, the only thing that matters is actual goals. Montreal 3, Buffalo 2. Dobeš became the second rookie goalie to win 2 Game 7s on the road in one postseason, joining another Canadien, the great Ken Dryden. I'm going to cut the article here. There are many other articles to read. If you'd like to hear the remainder of this article, please call Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 716-821-5555, and staff will be happy to read the remainder of the article to you. From page 1 of the sports section, some football. Leaders of the pack, the college QBs, quarterbacks, who will define 2026 and how we rank the top 10. Again, I will probably have some trouble pronouncing the names of the players. A legacy coming into his own at Texas. A new transfer set to take the reins at Indiana. Two surprising returnees at Oregon and Ole Miss. A set-to-explode second-year starter at Notre Dame. An elite quarterback class is poised to dominate and define the 2026 college football season. In the Longhorns, Arch Manning, the Ducks, Dante Moore, Ohio State's Julian Sayin, and more, those quarterbacks resemble on paper one of the best groups in recent football bowl subdivision history. Unsurprisingly, the list features some of the best teams in the FBS, including 4 of the top 5 and 7 of the top 9 teams in USA Today Sports' Too Early Top 25. After the Hoosiers' Fernando Mendoza took home the honors last year, another Big Ten starter leads the preseason Heisman Trophy debate and tops our post-spring list of college football's top quarterbacks. Number 1, Julian Sayin, pardon me if it's mispronounced, Ohio State. Sayin, this is spelled S-A-Y-I-N. Sayin isn't viewed on the quite same level as an NFL prospect as Manning and Moore, while those two are expected to top next year's draft. While those two are expected to top next year's draft, Sayin is projected to be taken number 22 overall in USA Today Sports' early look at the 2027 class. But he has the inside track for the Heisman because of his supporting cast, which includes superstar receiver Jeremiah Smith and running back Bo Jackson. Last season, Sayin threw for 3,610 yards while hitting on an FBS best 77% of his attempts. Number 2, Dante Moore, Oregon. Moore might have been taken among the first few picks of last month's draft, but did himself a huge favor by returning for another year. After a tumultuous close to last season that saw the Ducks bombarded by the Hoosiers in the college football playoff, Moore should solidify his place among the top players in the country thanks to increased familiarity with a scheme that shouldn't change too much under new coordinator Drew Maringer. Number 3, Arch Manning, Texas. A stumbling start to 2025 gave way to a terrific close to Manning's debut season as the starter, including a run of 19 combined touchdowns in the Longhorns' final 6 games. Overall, Manning had 36 total touchdowns while leading Texas to wins against Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, and Michigan. He'll enter this season with more help at the skill positions thanks to another very strong transfer haul. Number 4, C.J. Carr, Notre Dame. Carr could easily jump to the head of line among FBS quarterbacks should he build on a terrific redshirt freshman season and the Fighting Irish deliver on their promise as one of the top teams in the nation. He'll have to carry a heavier load as the offense moves ahead without NFL first-round running backs Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. Carr was exceptional on clear passing downs as a first-year starter and has the tools to shine even as the Irish aim to rebuild their running game. Number 5, Trinidad Chambliss, Ole Miss. Okay, Chambliss, Chambliss. Don't know how to pronounce it. Chambliss was granted a waiver for one final year of eligibility and will help the Rebels ease into the permanent Pete Golding era. A revelation in 2025, after starting the year in a backup role, the senior quickly became one of the most efficient players in the Power Four, with a combined 4,464 yards of total offense and 30 touchdowns against only 3 interceptions in 445 attempts. Number 6, Sam Leavitt, or possibly Levitt, LSU. Levitt takes the controls of Lane Kiffin's offense at LSU after a lost 2025 season. The former Michigan State transfer played in just 7 games due to injury in his final year at Arizona State, though his production with the Sun Devils paints the junior as a strong fit for Kiffin's scheme. Like Chambliss, Levitt brings another dimension as a runner after going for 749 yards and 10 touchdowns across the last 2 years. Number 7, Josh Hoover, Indiana. Hoover seems likely to put up video game numbers in the Hoosiers' quarterback-friendly system. Helping ease the transition are fellow transfers such as former Michigan State wide receiver Nick Marsh. Hoover was wildly productive at TCU, including 3,472 yards and 29 scores last season, but will need to limit his turnovers after tossing 33 interceptions over his 2+ years as the starter. Let's stop here for station identification. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 11 minutes before the hour, or 49 minutes after the hour. Number 7. Continuing along, number 7, Josh Hoover, Indiana. Hoover seems likely to put up video game numbers in the Hoosiers' quarterback-friendly system. Helping ease his transition are fellow transfers such as former Michigan State wide receiver Nick Marsh. Hoover was wildly productive at TCU, including 3,472 yards and 29 scores last season, but will need to limit his turnovers after tossing 33 interceptions over his 2+ years as the starter. Number 8, Darian Mensah, Miami. Mensah, Mensah, ditched Duke just as the transfer portal was closing and becomes the 3rd high-profile quarterback addition in a row for Miami, joining Cam Ward and Carson Beck. He's possibly an even more proven product after 2 often spectacular seasons with Tulane and the Blue Devils. Mensah averaged 9.5 yards per attempt with 22 touchdowns as a freshman with the Green Wave, and then threw for 3,973 yards and 34 scores in leading Duke to the ACC championship game. He's the centerpiece of a Miami offensive that has plenty of surrounding skill talent but will be reloading up front. Number 9, Marcel Reed, Texas A&M. Increased consistency will make Reed a genuine Heisman threat and would keep the Aggies near the top of the SBC. His sophomore year came to a thudding halt with no touchdowns and 4 interceptions in losses to Texas and Miami, overshadowing what had been a pretty stellar first full season in the lineup. But Reed will have a strong receiver group led by rising star Mario Craver and could flourish in the more pass-happy system being installed this offseason by new coordinator Holman Wiggins. 10. Bear Bachmeier, BYU. Bachmeier is a bruising runner who went for 527 yards and 11 touchdowns on the ground as a true freshman while still developing his abilities as a passer. He finished 2025 with 15 scores through the air while averaging 7.8 yards per attempt, and really struggled in the Cougars' 2 losses to Texas Tech. Look for his impact in the passing game to increase thanks to an uptick in experience while remaining a huge part of the ground game for one of the top teams in the Big 12. You may be interested in politics and sports. Congress's fix for college sports stalls again. Matthew Glenesk and John Bryce from USA Today. Congress's attempts to fix college sports hit another roadblock. The SCORE Act, that is S-C-O-R-E, the SCORE Act, which was set to be voted on this week in the House of Representatives, was pulled, per a Yahoo Sports report. This comes after the Congressional Black Caucus announced united opposition against the bill May 18th. Quoting, "The Congressional Black Caucus cannot support legislation benefiting major athletic institutions that continue to remain silent while black voting rights and black political power are being systematically dismantled across the South." End of quote. From the Congressional Black Caucus. Senator Maria Cantwell, Democrat, Washington, and Senator Ted Cruz, Republican, Texas, continue to work on a bipartisan plan as an alternative to the SCORE Act. Members of President Donald Trump's Council on College Sports sent a letter to both senators applauding, that was in quotation marks, applauding their efforts. Quoting, "It is time for all interested parties to set aside past differences and coalesce around legislation in order to get it to the president's desk without delay," read the letter signed by the likes of Nick Saban, Cody Campbell, and others who attended Trump's March 9th College Sports Summit. Continuing the quote from the letter, "Our university's student athletes, alumni, and fans across the entire nation deserve nothing less." The SCORE Act, this SCORE is the S-C-O-R-E, Student Compensation and Opportunity Through Rights and Endorsements, that's what SCORE Act is, sought to provide more regulation and calm the chaotic environment created by the introduction of name, image, and likeness, NIL, name, image, likeness, compensation, revenue sharing, and the transfer portal to college sports. It was scheduled to be up for a vote in December but was pulled due to bipartisan backlash. The SCORE Act is well intended but falls short and is not ready for prime time, Representative Chip Roy, Republican, Texas, posted at the time. On May 18th, prior to the bill being pulled for a vote, athletes.org posted an open letter urging Congress to not pass the SCORE Act. Quoting, "Congress is on the verge of making a massive mistake," the letter read. "If lawmakers want to save college athletics, ramming the SCORE Act through the House is exactly the wrong way to do it. Not because college sports are beyond saving, but because this bill risks codifying the same power imbalance that created this chaos in the first place." End of quote. The SCORE Act was recently amended, and the latest version, made available May 11th, on the rules portion of the House of Representatives website, sought to establish, quoting, "parameters for the manner in which an institution or any person on behalf of an institution may engage in public or private communication with respect to the employment of, or solicit, recruit, or enter into an employment contract or other arrangement with any coach employed by another institution with respect to a varsity sports team if such rules prohibit an institution, parentheses, or any person on behalf of an institution, close parentheses, from engaging in any such communication, solicitation, recruitment, contract, or other arrangement with any such coach during a season of competition of the varsity sports team of such coach, close quotation. In a May 7th op-ed published by The Hill, NCAA President Charlie Baker urged the advancement of the SCORE Act in this next legislative session, outlining that the NCAA has data that reflect student athletes do not wish to become full-time employees of their respective institutions, and also that additional oversight is needed before more opportunities in sports are sacrificed. Baker wrote that NIL should be an element upon which athletes can earn payment, but that current spending levels in college athletics are not sustainable. Let's go back to the meaning of NIL. Where was that? It was name, image, likeness, I believe, and I don't find it. Going on, quoting Baker, less than 1% of college sports programs nationwide generate meaningful revenue, Baker wrote, so the additional cost of an employment mandate would create enormous financial pressure, likely resulting in widespread program cuts, with women's sports, Olympic sports, historically black college and university programs, and Division II and III bearing the brunt. Beyond that, coaches would become bosses and scholarships could be taxed. I speak with student athletes daily, and this is not an outcome they desire, end quote. However, Baker further added, quoting, this includes codifying student athletes' right to capitalize on their name, image, and likeness. That's the NIL, name, image, and likeness, capitalize. So I'll read that again. This includes codifying student athletes' rights to capitalize on their name, image, and likeness, and mandating the health and wellness benefits they deserve, while finally establishing the guardrails necessary to protect young people from predatory agents and bad actors currently operating in an unregulated NIL market. Because of this balanced, holistic approach, the SCORE Act has earned the support of student-athlete leaders in nearly every conference, including all 4 HBCU conferences across all 3 divisions, HBCU, historically black colleges and universities. The SCORE Act also aims to tackle age-based eligibility issues in the NCAA, advocating against the return of professional players to the collegiate game, and it also pushes for student athletes to be in residence at a school for a minimum of 1 year before transferring. It urges institutions to keep academics and progress toward a degree as critical components. The end. Here's an article about college softball. Megan Grant headlines 26 player finalists. Megan Grant headlines the 2026 player finalists by John Lutzi. With the Women's College World Series just over a week away from starting in Oklahoma City, the USA Softball Collegiate Player of the Year race is down to 3. The final step in the race came on May 18th with USA Softball announcing that UCLA's Megan Grant, Nebraska's Jordy Fromm, and Florida State's Isa Torres, probably Isa Torres, were named among the top 3 finalists for the 2026 USA Softball Collegiate Player of the Year award. The award will be announced on May 26th ahead of the Women's College World Series at Devon Park in Oklahoma City. Grant has been one of the hottest hitters in the country in recent weeks and has swung the bat at a historic level. The Bruins senior left-handed hitter recorded a 6 RBI day in UCLA's 15-1 run rule win over South Carolina in the Los Angeles Regional on May 17th, with 4 RBIs coming via a grand slam, extending her NCAA single-session home run record to 40. Fromm remains one of the best pitchers and players in the country and is a top 3 finalist for college softball's highest honor for the 2nd consecutive season. The 2-time national champion has led Nebraska to a historic season, most recently helping the Cornhuskers to their first 3-0 regional weekend since 2013, which is also their last WCWS appearance. Fromm recorded a career-high 16 strikeouts in Game 2 of the Lincoln Regional versus Grand Canyon and ranks top 10 in 6 pitching categories. In 6 pitching categories. They are saves, first, 12, strikeout to walk ratio, third, 8.04, earned run average, fourth, 1.15, shutouts, fourth, 8, and strikeouts, ninth, 225. Torres, the lone player eliminated from the NCAA softball tournament, posted one of the best seasons in Florida State and ACC history. The ACC Player of the Year ranks among the top 5 nationally in batting average, third, .530, hits, third, 98, total bases, third, 181, and doubles, fifth, 21. The 2026 NCAA softball tournament continues on May 21st with the first batch of best-of-3 super regional series across the country. The Women's College World Series starts on May 28th. Let's turn now to another section. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Let's have a look at the Life section. First of all, how about your horoscope? Aries, March 21st to April 12th. Drawn to engaging conversations and stimulating ideas? Curiosity comes alive. Follow the thread to feed your mind. Taurus, April 20th to May 20th. A spotlight shines on your resources. Ready to spend with intention? Gemini season puts your money where your mouth is. Gemini, May 21st to June 21st. Your personal renewal period arrives today, making you more energized, expressive, and visible to others. Cancer, June 22nd to July 22nd. Prepare for an inner world activation. Embrace inquisitive reflection and quiet observation. Leo, July 23rd to August 22nd. Your social world turns sunny side up. Turn your attention toward your friendships and networks. Virgo, August 23rd to September 22nd. Step into the limelight. Gemini season begins today, bringing the sun's power to your professional world. Libra, September 23rd to October 23rd. Expanding your perspective, explore new ideas, move beyond what you think you know. Scorpio, October 24th to November 21st. Curious about what lurks in the shadows, get out your magnifying glass. Sagittarius, November 22nd to December 21st. Communication is everything in a relationship. Ready for words to teach you about yourself and others? Capricorn, December 22nd to January 19th. Small perspective shifts matter. Changing how you mentally approach your routines can lead to a daily overhaul. Aquarius, January 20th to February 18th. Time to play. Gemini season begins today, turning your attention towards joy, expression, and what feels fun and inspiring. Pisces, February 19th to March 20th. Clarity comes from within. Tune out the external noise. Your inner voice has something to say. Here's an article about Harry Styles. Styles brings his fans together on global tour by Melissa Ruggieri. Amsterdam. My name is Harry, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Harry Styles introduced himself to the sold-out crowd, admitting the night before this kickoff concert he had that feeling you get like no one is coming to your birthday party. He spent the next couple of hours showing why he is one of the most lovable pop stars currently doing things like, breaking ticket sales records, 450,000 over his 10-show run in Amsterdam, and topping pop charts worldwide. His sincerity is real, his appreciation for his fans, his band, his crew is frequently spoken, and his music is a continuous choose-your-own-adventure game. With 4 solo albums on his resume since the yesteryear of One Direction, Styles, 32 years old, has more hits and new material from his Ravelicious Kiss All the Time Disco Occasionally album to fit into a 2-hour show. There was no late night talking or lights up or satellite at Johan Cruyff Arena on May 16th with 50,000 fans and a handful of international journalists invited to opening night, reveling in the onset of his Together tour that will play 67 shows in 7 cities worldwide, 30 dates at Madison Square Garden in New York starting in August. This is only U.S. appearance. So I guess the Together tour will play 67 shows in 7 cities worldwide, 30 dates at Madison Square Garden in New York starting in August is his only U.S. appearance. But there was a spectacular Music for a Sushi Restaurant, a late show throwback to his first solo hit, the beautifully woozy Sign of the Times, and even an appearance of the tender Matilda in the encore. Styles' stage is a pop playground. Styles' laudable core band, anchored by his longtime drummer, the indefatigable Sarah Jones, who makes tricky beats look simple, was augmented by strings and horns on several tracks, a testament to his ambitious musical aspirations. While Styles' electropop almost always satisfies, the most awe-inspiring aspect of this production is the massive stage flanked by 2 oversized video screens and centered by a metallic structure that looks like an inverted ski jump. But it's 3 ramps and bridges extending the length of a football field and frequently alight in a candy land of colors that provided Styles with his pop playground. The visual allure was complemented by Styles bringing the sometimes monotonous songs on Kattdo, I guess, Kattdo, to life, especially during a loose-limbed dance breakdown with his band surrounding him during Ready, Steady, Go. Throughout the 21-song set, which included the introduction of a swooshy synth instrumental called Italian Girls, Styles embodied the togetherness that inspired the tour name. Be open to people, be open to people, friends, strangers, people close to you or far away, Stiles said. People who deserve your love and respect. Live and exist with your integrity and respect for one another, end quote. The adoring fans who crammed the floor, some sporting pink hair or dress shirts and ties in tribute to Stiles' onstage attire, looked like a sea of whack-a-moles as they bounced through new songs, pop, and well-worn favorites, Watermelon Sugar, alike. Stiles is an effusive ringleader. It wasn't difficult to be swept into Stiles' glee as ringleader as he sashayed with his ballroom meets Bee Gees dance moves, offered clasped hands in thanks toward the audience, and for his final victory lap, traversed every ramp during As It Was, arms outstretched as if bursting through the finish line of one of his marathons. Whether dabbling with a sequencer during the drum and bass clamoring of Season 2 Weight Loss, the epitome of Cat Dew's ethos to feel, not think, or sitting behind a keyboard as strings plucked beside him for the dreamy Coming Up Roses, has Stiles written a better lyric than Let's Go Hangover Chasing? The charismatic singer was locked in a musical embrace with his fans. As he reflected on the period of his life that inspired the detour into electronic music on his current release, Stiles was clear, quoting, "When I made this album, its purpose was about listening to music and experiencing music with strangers, with your friends, with people," he said. "Thank you for being a part of it," end quote. It was another heartfelt statement delivered with warmth and humility from pop's Prince Charming. Here is an article about Lindsay Hubbard. Hubbard moves from house to the city. Lindsay Hubbard has earned her reality TV stripes. The former publicist is one of only 3 of the inaugural Summer House roommates, along with Kyle Cook and Carl Radke, still standing. Still standing on the series dedicated to following young, attractive New Yorkers raging and planning themed soirees in the Hamptons. Bravo renewed the show, which is also getting a spin-off in the city, premiering after the season 10 finale, both airing May 19th, and centered on life in New York as the cast maneuvers marriage, the end of relationships, and raising children. Hubbard is leading the charge on the new show as daily bombshells and drama continue to leak out of the Summer House. Hubbard, 39, has long been the Summer House Spitfire, unafraid of confronting boyfriends for not making her a priority or a sandwich, and voicing her frustration with best friend turned fiancé Radke's requests that she be softer. They ended their engagement on camera in season 8, but years later, Hubbard is, quoting, "happy to say that we are in a friendly place," end quote. She welcomed her first child, daughter Gemma, in December 24th with her ex, Turner Kufi, Kufe. The latest drama began before season 10 even started, when Cook and Amanda Batula, Batula, his wife and co-star for both series, announced their split in January after 4 years of marriage. At the time, their split was the biggest Summer House bombshell until Batula and cast member West Wilson confirmed their rumored romance in March. Their confession left viewers gobsmacked, as Wilson and Cook were pals, and Wilson previously dated Batula's best friend, Clara Miller, in season 8. and the Summer House headlines keep coming. Miller alleged on May 8th that Wilson and Jennifer Fessler, married former The Real Housewives of New Jersey star, slept together. Wilson and Fessler both have denied the accusation. Hubbard says she became aware of this rumor long before fans did, but isn't sure of its merit. Who's to know? She tells USA Today. We obviously know that we have a bunch of liars around us at all times, so I don't know if we'll ever know the truth. Hubbard weighs in on the ubiquitous Summer House scandal, shares regrets about siding with Petula, and reveals where she and Radke stand today. And this interview has been edited and condensed for clarity and length, says the USA Today. Question. Being in the house, did you see anything between Amanda and West that viewers haven't seen, which raised a red flag for you? Answer. No. That's the crazy part, is we're all really close as friends, or at least we were, and we are a very affectionate group of friends, me included, and when certain things are a little too obvious, you're like, no, we're all just friends. It becomes almost like a hiding in plain sight type of story. Question. What was your relationship with Amanda? What was your relationship with Amanda like filming in the city? Amanda and I have a checkered history in our friendship. It's always been up and down throughout the years, and we finally got to a point where we started getting really close over the last year, which included our time filming last season of Summer House, which is airing now, and then also In the City. I loved filming with Amanda, and I really had her back, and I was very much taking her side in a lot of matters with her and Kyle. It sucks and it's disappointing, and I am questioning a lot of, like, I'm defending you and I'm being your mouthpiece. Was there something else going on? Time for station identification. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 47 minutes past the hour. Continuing now with the question and answer interview with Lindsay Hubbard. Question. Were you taking her side because you agreed with her more? Was it because you were hearing her perspective and not getting Kyle's side? Why did you feel like she was in the right? Answer. If we could just all take a step back and take the scandal out of our minds. We're looking at a relationship and a marriage where, optics-wise, Kyle's not being a great husband, right? He's sleeping at fans' houses. He's going out late at night and DJing and partying and staying out and drinking and getting drunk with random people, and he seemingly is not showing up to a marriage, but wanting to save a marriage at the same time. So any normal person who understands a little bit about partnerships and what it takes to compromise would also do the same, where you're like, okay, I agree, as long as you're both putting in the effort. But hindsight is always a 20/20. We're all watching this, and now with a different lens of the scandal. The things I was saying made sense at the time, or according to what we knew and saw. Now we know a whole lot more. I would love to go back and be the fly on the wall and know everything, but we're going off of the information we're given at that time, and this was all before the scandal. USA Today's question: what do we see of your life on In the City? And Hubbard's answer: this season of Summer House, I was really popping in and out. I was in the middle of postpartum. I was working on scheduling where Gemma was. On In the City, you really see my day-to-day life with Gemma as a mom, and Gemma's on it. You see me navigating all of the new dynamics as a mom, my dating life, what that looks like as a single mom, and trying to figure that out, and what I want, and what that looks like, and how to even do it. USA Today's question: interview question. Would you like to continue on Summer House, or would you like to make the jump to In the City exclusively if it were to continue? Hubbard's answer. I'm not an exclusive girl. I will always love Summer House and be a part of it if they want me there. I just don't think I could do it in a full-time capacity. I'm 39, I have a baby, and I don't even know if viewers really want to continue watching me as a mom. Question. Lately, we've been seeing you and Carl on red carpets. Do you feel like you could be real friends? Answer. Hubbard's answer. Even over the past month, Carl and I are in a better place than we were a month ago. I do think that when something this big and impactful, such as this scandal, happened, it really brings the core together to want to protect whatever we can. Protect the things that we've built together and come together and support each other. Carl and I have a conversation in the finale, a very long, overdue conversation that didn't happen for 2 years since we broke up. And I think finally, once we had that conversation, then you can start taking the steps to determine what that new dynamic looks like. I know that we love to place a status and labels on everything in our world, but I'm happy to say that we are in a friendly place. Friends is a category right now that is up in the air. Usually friends have a relationship where you call each other and you hang out and whatever. Right now, Carl and I are just running into each other, and we're friendly, and I like that. I like where we're at right now. USA Today's question, final interview question. When you talk about wanting to be protective of what you guys have made, the cast records an emotional and long Summer House reunion only for the audio clips to leak. Hubbard's answer. The leaks are disappointing. It's disappointing if it came from somebody who works in our close environment. We really share our lives. It's not easy for a lot of people to share every single part of their lives with the entire world and open ourselves up for judgment. And we sit at these reunions and we bare our souls and our hearts in tears, and this is not a couple of hours out of a day. This is a full-blown 15, 16-hour day for us. And obviously, there's a great format to reality TV and why Bravo has succeeded in the reality TV space, and especially the reunion space. So let's just let everyone do what they do best and leave it at that. Next article from the Life section of the Wednesday, May 20th USA Today. Obsession breakout star Navarrete is hooked on horror. Indy Navarrete, I don't know if it's Indy, I-N-D-E, I will say Indy. Indy Navarrete has reached that special point in every young actor's life. She can't talk about her next project. I feel like it's just a little me, myself, and I, a little secret, she says with a giggle. That may be under wraps, but her talent isn't under wraps anymore. Navarrete turns in a multifaceted, star-making performance in the horror film Obsession. But this scream queen is far from a final girl. She's the one doing the scaring. In director Curry Barker's take on the monkey's paw trope, awkward dude bear Michael Johnston has a crush on his co-worker Nikki Navarrete. Using a mysterious one-wish willow trinket, Bear wishes that she would love him more than anyone else in the world. It triggers something in the down-to-earth Nikki, who becomes a devoted girlfriend, going to terrifying extremes to show her adoration and keep others away from her man. Nikki cackles, sobs, screams a lot, begs, rages, and everything in between. There's something definitely wrong with her, and Navarrete, 25, captures a lot of it just in her vivid expressions. Quoting, "My mom's always said that I am an open book on my face," she says. "You can just read what I'm thinking." After appearing in the TV series 13 Reasons Why and Superman and Lois, and the Dave Bautista action flick Trap House, Navarrete tried out horror and now is hooked. I'd do it for the rest of my life. It's the best. Navarrete connected with the themes of Obsession. With Obsession, I wanted to try something new, and this was nothing but new. Navarrete says, and with Nikki, there's 6 different characters in one person. On one hand, it's a simple story of a love gone wrong, but the movie deepens thematically when it's revealed that the real Nikki is trapped in her body. The actress saw it as a terrifying betrayal of somebody who's supposed to love you and protect you. There's a moment when someone says to Bear that it seems like Nikki's not taking care of him. In all actuality, she's the one that's being hurt, Navarrete says. I really wanted to make sure that it was gut-wrenching and real and raw and vulnerable. I've heard a lot of people saying that this movie has made them sick because it's such an innate fear of everything being out of your control, and it's not being protected but being manipulated. She gets a kick out of scaring people, just not herself. One new thing Navarrete realized about herself in making Obsession is how much I would be excited about scaring people. The way Nikki looks at Bear or screams in his face or even just wears the most chilling perma-grin you've ever seen leads to some of the film's most unnerving moments. There's one scene, however, that even she refuses to watch. Bear wakes up in the middle of the night, and there's a goosebump-inducing moment where Barker cleverly plays with shadows and an unseen Nikki is talking to Bear from a completely dark corner. On the set that day, she caught a glimpse of the scene on a monitor and now never wants to see it again. Sometimes your performance is for other people. I don't need to experience it because I think it's such a scary thing to be scared of yourself. One of Navarrete's earliest inspirations, Natalie Portman. Born in Tucson, Arizona, Navarrete ping-ponged across the country growing up because her dad is a Marine, and she first tried acting in summer YMCA camps. Navarrete would reenact scenes of the movies that she'd watch with her mom, such as Gladiator. She recalls, even as a child, understanding what the movie was about and feeling really warm in my body, like I too wanted to express that emotion. Navarrete also found inspiration watching Natalie Portman in Leon the Professional. One reason was she looked like me, Navarrete acknowledges. Also, it was the first time that I had ever seen myself in a film, being like, wow, it's a young girl and she has these kind of adult problems, says Navarrete, who moved to LA with her mom and officially started acting when she was 18. Another fun fact, she earned the nickname Indy very early in life. The actress, whose legal name is Danielle Fabiola Navarrete, explains that the first 2 words she said were, I do. I do. I do. Her hands-on mom would want to do my hair and help me with things, and it was always just, no, Mommy, I do, she says. She was like, yeah, she's so independent, hence Indy. So then it just turned into Indy. People think it's for Indy 500 or Indiana Jones, and sometimes I just go, yeah. Obsession actress ready for a roller coaster of roles. Navarrete's next film is the upcoming thriller In Vertigo, about a group of teens who sneak onto a theme park ride before it debuts and get stuck high in the air courtesy of a system failure. She filmed in Thailand and, yes, rode a roller coaster quite a bit. I've always loved them because I love the feeling in my belly, she says. Her fave, Disneyland's Guardians of the Galaxy ride. As far as future roles goes, she recently rewatched Erin Brockovich and wouldn't mind playing a similarly grounded character in a real-life drama. But really, from action to fantasy, she's game for a little of everything, Navarrete says. Navarrete says, you go make a dragon movie or you go whoop some butt and then come back for a psychological thriller. You've been listening to a reading of the USA Today for May 20th, 2026. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 821-5555, 821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been Pat Connolly.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability,